Good afternoon. Let me start by saying that we continue to pray for all of the victims of the Key Bridge collapse and their families. You know, it's not lost on any of us up here or any of us in the state that 4 weeks to the day that the bridge fell is today. That 4 weeks to the day, 1 month exactly, where something that was a crown jewel for our city and our state and for our nation collapsed into the Patapsco River. But we also know that 4 weeks ago today, the lives of 6 families were changed and changed forever. They're facing a grief that does not go away in days. It doesn't go away in weeks. It does not go away in years. These families are going to be thinking about those who they lost every single day. And they need to know that we are here for them, now and always. Estas familias van a estar pensando en las personas que han perdido todos los días. Y necesitan saber que estamos aquí para ayudarlos ahora y siempre. These last 4 weeks have been challenging. And these last 4 weeks have been hard. But they've also been inspiring. Inspiring because we've seen in action the first responders who have led with courage and with strength. Inspiring because we've seen leaders on both sides of the aisles who have stepped up. Inspiring because we have seen Marylanders from all backgrounds, from all communities, who have rallied. And inspiring because, as a state, we have shown that by working together, that we can make extraordinary progress. And I'm going to talk about some of the details of that progress today. But here's the bottom line. 4 weeks ago, the Francis Scott Key Bridge collapsed. And I remember for each and every one of us, when we first got a chance to see that image, we knew that there were more questions than there were answers. How would we bring closure to these families? How would we fully reopen the port? How would we make sure that we are helping all the people who have been impacted by this? And how would we build the bridge? That 4 weeks ago, uncertainty, it clouded everything. But 4 weeks later, the conversation is not about how would we. It's now that we will. That we will make sure we're bringing comfort to these families. That we will make sure that we are going to reopen the federal channel. That we will make sure that we are going to support those who have been impacted by this crisis, and that we will rebuild the Key Bridge. We have met consistently with the families. And the families of the victims, and we have over 20 state employees that are working around the clock to give them closure. That we've lifted over 2,900 tons of wreckage. And being able to do each and every one of those things through the remarkable work of Unified Command without a single injury. There have been 145 commercial vessels that have moved through the temporary channels that have been set up by Unified Command, that collectively we have worked and we have passed bipartisan legislation at the state level to support everyone who is impacted by this crisis, that our federal delegation introduced bipartisan legislation on the federal side to ensure that the rebuilding of the Key Bridge was going to be a national priority. And in these 4 weeks, we have built a coalition of local elected officials. I want to personally once again thank both County Executive Olszewski and also Mayor Scott for their leadership, and the other county executives, County Executive Pittman and others have been involved inside this work. A coalition that consists of our federal delegation, a coalition that consists of military personnel, a coalition that consists of the Biden-Harris administration, a coalition that consists of first responders, and a unified command. A unified command that, as has been said earlier, is truly, truly unified, Admiral Gilreath. That consists of the Coast Guard, of Navy SUPSOLV, of the Army Corps of Engineers, of the Maryland State Police, of the Maryland Department of the Environment, and the Maryland Transportation Authority. A unified command. That when crisis struck, Maryland rallied. And I am so proud of this state. I'm so proud of our response. And I'm proud to be your governor. This is what a government response should look like. Now today, I'm going to provide updates on our 4 key directives. The first, I'm bringing closure to the families. Last week, Lieutenant Governor Miller met with one of the families that are grieving now, and she sent a clear message that I also want to echo today, that we are going to continue to work closely with each of the families and offer them all the support that we can muster. That's our promise, and our commitment to that promise, it will not waver. Second, on clearing the federal channel and opening vessel traffic to the port, we are on track to have 4 different channels available to commercial transit by later this week. 3 of these channels are already open, one with a controlling depth of 11 feet, one with a controlling depth of 10 feet, one with a controlling depth of 20 feet. And today, Unified Command began laying out buoys and lights to mark the 4th temporary channel with a controlling depth of 35 feet. That channel is scheduled to be available to transit later on this week, weather permitting. Now, this is an important step forward. This is an important milestone. But I also want to be very clear. This is not the goal. This is a step on the journey, but it's not the destination. We have to and we will open the full federal channel. But this progress that we have seen thus far, this is important, and it's noteworthy. Now, there still remains a remarkably complex situation. Our team, though, now is double tracking. And what we mean by that is this, is that salvage operations are happening while also commercial vehicles are moving in and out of the Port of Baltimore. And so I do want to emphasize that point and make sure people understand that members of Unified Command are literally pulling steel from the water with active vessels moving around them. And these boats are in such close quarters to our salvage team that they can literally feel the vibrations when these ships move by. As the water shifts, so does the wreckage, because we have to understand the enormity and the size of these ships. They will and do create an impact. So as we're having people who are working on the wreckage and working on the salvage, that's all now being done with a very new consideration, which is commercial vehicles that are moving alongside of them. So this work is complicated. This work is dangerous. And we need to make sure that our commercial movements do not slow our work as we're still clearing the wreckage. Unified Command has laid out a responsible schedule for making sure commerce can move throughout these 4 channels, even as we clear the debris. And later this week, we will open the 35-foot channel to vessel traffic. And that is going to allow several ships in the Port of Baltimore to be able to move through that are currently stuck, to allow them to move through the channel. Unified Command will then briefly suspend transit through the 35-foot channel and ensure the salvage team can safely and efficiently complete their work on our ultimate goal of opening the 50-foot channel. This plan will help to keep us on schedule and ensures the safety of our first responders, of our vessel pilots, and of everyone involved inside of this work. And so I want to be clear. We are going to work efficiently, and we are going to work safe, and we're not going to choose between the two. This is a 24/7 operation that is happening, morning, noon, and night. And yesterday, we had the largest pull of the operation. And in fact, I'll give you an example. Thanks so much. So this is a picture from the pull that we had just yesterday. This piece right here, this represents 560 tons of steel. That 560 tons is about the weight of a jumbo 747. That's what was pulled out from the water yesterday. And it's important to remember that just the process of rigging it, just the process of a preparation, was about a 2.5-day operation, moving smoothly, moving methodically, and the remarkable work of Unified Command was able to help make this pull happen. You'll also notice a few things that I want to show. First of all, the size of how big this piece is. If you just look at the people next to it, you get a better sense of scale, of the enormity of this piece of steel, the enormity of this chunk, this tranche of the Key Bridge. The other thing I want to notice, I want people to remember is this. This is happening at night. This operation happened when many people were already fast asleep. I think Colonel Pinchase and I think we were talking, you sent me this, I think it was like 11:30 at night when we were speaking about this poll. This is a 24/7 operation that is taking place. Smoothly, safely, and efficiently. And we're so grateful for the work that continues to happen to make successes like this take place. So despite the fact this work is dangerous, this work is getting done. And I want to thank all of the members of the Unified Command and the leadership for making sure that we stay on task, on target, and again, without a single injury. Third, taking care of our people. Last week, we launched 2 programs to support workers that were affected by this crisis. The first is the Port of Baltimore Worker Retention Program. Now, this is going to help businesses make sure that they are avoiding layoffs. And as of this morning, we have approved 129 applications to this program, totaling around $9 million in state support. That funding is going to protect the jobs of almost 1,500 Marylanders. And 40% of those awardees are women and minority-owned business enterprises. The second program is the Port of Baltimore Worker Support Program. It provides a temporary weekly benefit to all port workers who have lost hours and income because of the collapse, including employees and also including independent contractors. We continue to receive applications for that program, and I encourage everyone to go to labor.maryland.gov for more information. And yesterday, we launched 2 more programs to support our people. The first will be operated through the Department of Housing and Community Development under the leadership of Secretary Jake Day. The department is offering no-interest loans and grants to businesses affected by the collapse. And so far, already, we've received 23 applications from businesses totaling $3.4 million. And I encourage everyone to visit dhcd.maryland.gov/keybridgeresources to learn more. And yesterday, we also launched the Port of Baltimore Emergency Business Assistance Program. This program will be operated by the Maryland Department of Commerce under the leadership of Secretary Kevin Anderson. This new program will provide grants to businesses that have had operations impacted or shipments disrupted at the Port of Baltimore. Grants up to $100,000 will be awarded on a first-come, first-served basis. And for anyone interested in learning more or applying, I encourage you all to go to commerce.maryland.gov to learn more. So as you can see, we continue taking an all-of-the-above government approach to this work. Whether it's Commerce and DHCD, whether it's the work of labor, making sure we're supporting our workers, whether it's the work of the Department of Natural Resources and the Department of the Environment, who are literally been in the water every single day ensuring that our communities are safe, whether it's the work of emergency management or the state police. This is an all-hands-on-deck, all-of-the-above government approach to this crisis, and you'll continue to see that. Because around me, you'll see cabinet secretaries from a number of our state agencies, all of whom have raised their hands in this moment to serve. And I couldn't be prouder of this team. I couldn't be prouder of this push, because together, we're going to support everybody impacted by this crisis. And fourth, on rebuilding the Key Bridge. We continue to speak with congressional leaders on both sides of the aisle, emphasizing the importance of federal action. And as we continue to work with anyone and everyone who understands the enormity of the task ahead of us and knowing that we're going to need a full approach to be able to address it. And I'm confident we are going to get this done because I'm confident, and I have confidence in the people who we're going to do it with. Because every day I get a chance to meet people who show what it means to be Maryland tough and Baltimore strong. And I'm proud we have two of them here. Today we're joined by Janice Atkinson and Yvette Jeffrey. Janice and Yvette have spent the last few weeks helping us stand up the Maryland Business Resource Centers in the greater Baltimore region. Bless you. These business resource centers have helped to combine 373 Marylanders since they have opened, and the reason they've been so effective is because of people like Janice and people like Yvette who have been on the ground. And the reason I want to also highlight them is this. Yvette is from San Antonio. She has been away from her home for over a month, responding to SBA disaster declaration sites. And she's going to be with us until the end of this declaration. And Janice is from Atlanta. She's been away from her home since February, responding to SBA declaration sites. She was on the ground in Baltimore on Easter Sunday, doing the work. This is what they do. They travel the country helping people in need. We are so beyond grateful because while you might not be Marylanders yet, even though we're working on it, you have shown what it means to be Maryland tough and Baltimore strong. We thank you for your leadership and your commitment to our people. Bless you. So in a moment, I'll hand it over to Admiral Gil Reith, representing Unified Command, and then he'll be followed by the following speakers: Colonel Pinchason from the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, Mayor Brandon Scott, great seat of Baltimore, County Executive Johnny Olszewski from the great county of Baltimore County. And I want to thank all of our partners for being here today and every day. So without further ado, Admiral Gil Reith. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Governor. Good afternoon. Our thoughts and prayers remain with the families of the victims and those impacted by this event. We truly cannot forget them, and we will not forget them, and our thoughts and prayers remain with them. So I want to thank the governor, and I want to thank the local officials for your support of this unified command. And really, I want to say this is truly a unified command from the federal level, from the support we've seen from the federal side, down to the state side, down to the local side. It has been unified in our efforts together. And that has caused this to move as fast as possible and to continue to do this work safely. And so all of the things that the governor highlighted today have been accomplished because of that hard work and staying unified in our effort. And I especially want to thank the members of the Unified Command. Many of those leaders are standing beside us today to my right. And I just want to publicly say thank you again for all of your hard work and effort that you've made inside the Unified Command. It is truly making a difference, and I could not be prouder of what you are accomplishing together. You're doing it as fast as possible, and you continue to do it safely. So to update you a little bit on where we're at, our number one priority remains to restore commerce fully to the Port of Baltimore. And so along those lines, the first thing that we are trying to still do is reopen a deep draft channel. And so this week, later this week, we will reopen a 35-foot channel to deep draft traffic for about 4 days or so. And that'll be later this week, and I'm going to ask Colonel Pinchason to talk a little bit more about that, as well as all the work that went into getting that ready. But that's on target and on track with what was previously published, and I'm very proud of those efforts that went into that. They've done a tremendous job. So the second thing that we said we're going to do is we're going to remove the dolly. And so as part of removing the dolly and continuing to work as fast as possible and safely, we're going to suspend vessel transits through that new channel for roughly 10 days or so. And that will allow us to safely conduct the rigging we need to do on board that large piece of the bridge that's still on board the bow of the dolly. And once we complete that, then we'll be able to remove that, and then shortly after that, we believe the dolly will come free, and we'll be able to get the dolly out of the channel. That will allow us to most effectively use that 35-foot draft that's already been established, and we'll continue to make progress on clearing the remainder of the channel. That is the most efficient way to do it and the safest way to do it, and that's what we're going to do. So appreciate your understanding about that. And on the third thing, removing the rest of the bridge debris from the waterway, we continue to make great progress in that regard. I'm particularly proud of the State of Maryland Department of Transportation and their contractors who worked very hard to remove that span of the bridge that was just north of the vessel. And in that section, we were able to reopen a new channel this weekend to barges at a 20-foot draft. And that's significant because that'll allow more barges to load to a deeper draft with more cargo to come in and out. So that's sugar, potentially containers in the future, and maybe some coal and other things. So it's really going to help us a lot in that regard, and I'm very proud of those efforts. So I'm going to turn it over to Colonel Pinchason and let her brief you a little bit more in depth on the deep draft channel.
Good afternoon, everyone. Governor Moore, sir. I also want to echo what Governor Moore and Admiral Gilreath mentioned about always remembering the families and everything that we're doing. And I can tell you from our team, that the team of teams, it's a daily discussion, and they never leave our minds and our hearts because it's just an integrated part of the plan and everything that we're doing. So we're thinking about them, especially today at the 4-week mark. We're very proud to report that we're on track to meet our intermediate milestone of opening a limited access channel by the end of April, and we're still on schedule to open the full federal channel, the full 50-foot channel, by the end of May. We've been making great progress across all 3 of our salvage operations. At the end of last week, we removed a very large portion north of the channel, as Admiral Gilreath mentioned, to allow us to open yet another alternate channel that's 20 feet deep. And the state's contractor, Skanska, just did incredible work safely removing a large span from that portion of the wreckage outside the channel to make that possible. On the vessel, we have Resolve Marine also making great, steady progress, preparing the vessel to eventually refloat. A lot of good work on the vessel to prepare for removing the wreckage from that vessel. That's going to be critical for us to refloat and hopefully clear the vessel from the channel as efficiently as possible. As for our efforts inside the channel, we've reached a substantial, significant incremental milestone that's going to allow us to deliver this limited access channel. We've cleared wreckage that was wrapped around the pier that's on the far side of the channel, and we have a graphic that we'll be able to show here shortly. But that allows us to open a 35-foot deep, 300-foot wide limited access channel and meet the Corps of Engineers' commitment of delivering that by the end of April. And we're partnering very closely through the Unified Command with our battle buddies in the Coast Guard to make that happen by the end of the month. Last week, we performed some very critical cuts to help us shape the load and engineer the rigs that we were going to perform, help us balance those lifts that our cranes were going to have to make. And that allowed us to remove a good portion of the wreckage on Friday. It was about 460 tons. Then, working on Saturday, Sunday, and into Monday, we were preparing to conduct that largest lift that you saw, 560 tons. I can't say enough about our salvage team, our support from the United States Navy's Supervisor of Salvage, or SUPSALV, and also our contractor, Don John Marine, who completed these iterative cuts, lifts, and rigs, adjusting, trimming, they call it, giving it a haircut off of that wreckage to be able to lift that safely. And the patience, the perseverance, the determination that they had to be able to do this, to keep us on track, on schedule, but doing it safely, just can't be overstated. It's extremely complex and dangerous, but they did that with such discipline. That's what's going to enable us to just keep moving forward and ultimately open that 50-foot channel. As Governor Moore mentioned, we are remaining vigilant with our commitment to safety. That is like a given. It's non-negotiable. And we're very proud to not have any significant incidents or any injuries to date. And as we look to the future, we want to keep that going. We're working on multiple fronts across the entire waterway to remove spans that are laying not just outside the channel, but especially laser focused now on the span that's laying across the dolly. This is critical to our ability to refloat the vessel and ultimately restore the 700-foot channel. So as the salvage effort continues, we know it's very dangerous and very complex. It is an unforgiving operational environment, but we're very confident in our team. We wouldn't be able to do any of this without the skill, teamwork, and collaboration across the Unified Command, our DoD partners, our state and federal partners, and our industry partners. And the level of coordination that's taking place behind the scenes and on the water is unmatched. The Unified Command will continue to work diligently to open and restore commerce back to the Port of Baltimore, but always will not lose focus on the most important aspect here, which is the safety of our crews, our people that are doing this for us, and of course, to bring closure to our families. So thank you again for letting me be here today, and sir, I'll be followed by Mayor Scott. Oh, you know what? I think I was supposed to give a little orientation.
Oh,
yeah.
Please.
Absolutely. I know it's, sometimes we're talking about all this and it's challenging to visualize it, so we have some graphics here. So there we are, the gorgeous city of Baltimore in the distance, and we've got the dolly, the vessel, and then we have the pier that we're talking about. And what you don't see is how we had a mangled contortion of wreckage wrapped around that pier, and now it's gone. The other thing, if you remember from the skyline we've been looking at over the last few weeks, we used to have a very large span, kind of like that one, going into the water, and now it's gone. And that's just incredible when you can physically see the progress. So as we go to the next slide after the kind of overview and orienting you, when we say that we're opening the 35-foot deep, 300-foot wide channel, that's what we're saying is across from the vessel. It's on the far side of the pre-existing channel. That's our Fort McHenry channel. That's the channel that has been coming into the Port of Baltimore and delivering goods to Baltimore all these years. Now, if you can see, that's that pier that we were looking at that was free and clear in the previous picture. And you can see how the wreckage is literally wrapped around and going down into the water and then into the mudline. And the reason the rigging and the lifting took so long is because of how deep entrenched this wreckage was, not only in the mud, but also tangled up in collapsed wreckage below. And in the weeks that led up to this, we've had survey and dive operations identify where those connections were, where the wreckage was pinning it down so that they could continue trimming portions of the wreckage off to get to the point where you have a pier that is much more clear. And so when you envision how our vessels are going to be transiting here, you still have salvage operations taking place on the dolly. I'm not touching it, I swear. Very careful. Oh yes, so this is the graphic that shows where all the channels we have already established. So this blue that you see here, that's the Federal Navigation Channel. It is 700 feet wide, and we maintain it at 50 feet deep. The Corps of Engineers maintains this all year round. What we were able to successfully open, we started off with our 10-foot channel, then we opened the 14-foot channel, next was our 20-foot channel, and sometime by the end of, towards the end of the week, we're going to have this limited access channel that'll be 35 feet deep and 300 feet wide. And then we're still going to be working on our salvage operations outside of that, but this will be able to provide some relief to the Port of Baltimore. So I guess we'll stand by for questions at the end.
Thank you, Colonel, and good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for being here. 4 weeks ago today, we suffered an unthinkable tragedy. 4 weeks ago today, 6 Marylanders lost their lives trying to make ours better. And 4 weeks ago, our way of life was dealt a huge blow with the collapse of the Key Bridge. But amidst a tragedy like we have never seen before and hopefully never see again, Baltimore and Maryland came together to support the families of those who lost their lives, together to support our port workers and business owners and families who depend on the port, and together in this unified command to focus on clearing the channel, reopening the port, and bringing those home who still are out there. I want to begin today by, again, extending my heartfelt condolences to those loved ones who we lost in this tragedy, and say, again, that our minds, our hearts, our thoughts, our words will continue to be with you, and we will bring your loved ones home. We will again express again and again and again that every single person involved in this effort is committed to ensuring that we recover them. It is an unimaginable pain and grief to be separated for so long without the small amount of closure that recovering them will bring. And the entire city of Baltimore, I know the entire state of Maryland, and people around this country and the world continue to mourn with you and feel your pain. We will continue to stand by your side and offer every bit of assistance that we can. I know that there continues to be a significant amount of interest in a fund that has been organized by my Mayor's Office of Immigrant Affairs, which as of today has raised more than $734,000. The governor already highlighted to soon-to-be Marylanders, Mr. Governor, we have Live Baltimore packets for both of the ladies so they can move into Baltimore City. But I want to talk about and highlight one of our recent donors to that fund, a 16-year-old named Alexa Duenas from Coral Gables, Florida, who raised $40,854.56 to support the victims and their families. We are so grateful for Alexa and the outpouring of support for our families from around the country. We also stand in commitment to keep supporting those workers and families who remain impacted by the port's closure. We continue to support the Maryland Tough Baltimore Strong Fund to direct support workers in partnership with Governor Moore, his team, and my counterparts at the local level, including County Executive Olszewski. I will also continue to raise up, for those who may not have yet heard it, that the city of Baltimore is offering utility bill, water bill, and rental assistance for impacted workers and families. Please go to baltimorecity.gov/keybridge to find out more on how to apply if you are in need. We know that bills are coming due, and we have assistance available, so please reach out to us so that we can assist you. Similarly, we are still accepting applications for our wage subsidy program in the city. To date, we've had 38 businesses apply, and they're overwhelmingly small businesses that employ just a few workers and will absolutely benefit from this support. We still have some availability left, so if you and your business are in need, please reach out to the MOED team, and you can find that information also at baltimorecity.gov/keybridge. Lastly, I want to quickly touch on the announcement that the governor and Unified Command just discussed. Since the very beginning of this effort, you have seen the commitment not just of this group here, but all of the teams that these groups represent, those hard-working women and men who are doing the work throughout the night in every single second. Those members, from the Army to the Coast Guard to salvage workers to the Navy's first responders and staff members who are making this happen on water and in land in support roles, helping to deal with the economic impact. It may seem confusing why the channel is being open in this way, but know that this team is doing it in the way that is going to be best for us in the long run, and that will keep people safe as they could do this work each and every day. This unified command, as I've said before, is the best representation of partnership that I've seen in government in my now 17 years in government. And I would not want to be going through this process with any other group of people, because I know they are committed to our people, our families, our city, our state, and everyone that has been impacted by this tragedy. And with that, I will turn it over to County Executive Olszewski.
Well, thank you, Mayor, and good afternoon to all. Today is indeed a somber milestone in our response to the tragedy of the Key Bridge collapse. It's a moment to reflect and continue to mourn and pray for and with the impacted families. It's a moment to thank the bravery of our first responders, a moment to thank the dedicated work around the clock of this incredible unified command team. And Governor Moore, I'd be remiss if I didn't thank you again for the ways in which you have rallied not just our unified command, but also our partners in state agencies and local government and the public. So thank you, Governor. Thank you. We're here to meet the need. And so even as we remember those lost and we celebrate the lives they did live, we also are stepping up in ways that are unprecedented in terms of resources for our people. So I just want to reinforce the mayor's point that if you are in need, please reach out. And it doesn't matter whether you're a Baltimore City resident or a Baltimore County resident or an Anne Arundel County resident or from anywhere else. You're a Marylander and you're one of ours, and we will meet the need together. And we will put the resources forward to help us all get through this. So in the weeks ahead, please continue to support the incredible work of this command team. I have absolute confidence in their ability to get this done right, to get it done safely, and to get it done as quickly as possible. They are truly, truly amazing. It's an honor to watch them work and to have a glimpse into what they do. But let's continue supporting them, and let's continue supporting and lifting up each other. And with that, I'll turn things back over to Governor Moore. Thank you.
Was unseaworthy, if I read that correctly, in this petition. Could you clarify or offer some commentary?
My comment is simple, that, I will not comment on any pending litigation. That will have its due time and through the due process.
Could you just describe again, I'm sorry if you did this already, the types of ships that are going to be able to go through the 35-foot channel specifically?
I can start if you want to. So what's going to happen with the 35-foot channel? In fact, can we go to the graphic slide? So what this 35-foot channel here is going to open up, and this 35-foot channel here, and again, as Colonel Pinchason pointed out, we had the 10-foot draft initial, then you had the 14-foot draft here. You then have the 20-foot draft here, and then this right here is the 30-foot draft, 35-foot draft that we're speaking about. The type of ships that will be able to go through there is you have some of the heavier ships, some of the initial cargo carrying ships that can come on board. The reason why this was an important milestone is that at around that 35-foot draft is really where you're starting to get some of the inventory that's coming on board that had been some of the hallmarks of the Port of Baltimore. That's when you're starting to get enough draft where you're able to get things like the aluminum and the container ships that are coming on board. So that's why this one is going to be such an important feature. As was mentioned before, it'll be a limited access channel, so it'll be controlled in terms of which ships and vehicles will coming in. We'll have additional supports like tugs. They'll be able to support those initial ships coming in. But that is really the beginning of how we're opening up into this blue span, that really where you're seeing kind of the nuts and bolts of what makes the Port of Baltimore so special. I don't know if there's anything else.
Scott Broom, WUSA in Washington. The 35-foot channel, do you have any fix on any particular ships that are going out? Which ones are going? Are they car carriers exactly? I'm still focused on the answer you were given. I'd like to report to our audience, are they going out light? These are unloaded ships that are trying to get out and back into commerce? Or are these loaded ships going out?
Thank you for the question. I'm Captain David O'Connell. I'm the captain of the port here in Baltimore. So we have 7 ships currently in the inventory here that are ready to get out. We're going to be able to get 5 of those out. One is a loaded car carrier that will be transiting out. Incoming ships, I know we have a container barge which is scheduled to come in. We have another small bulker coming in, and then another aluminum ship would be scheduled to come in that time frame as well.
Great, thanks for the specifics. Could I have a follow-up? Governor, we did just talk about this litigation that the city has filed. Is there any interest on the state side and even with county executive on the county side for joining any sort of litigation and establishing a position here as the shipping company did a couple weeks ago?
There's still an active investigation that's going on, and so I know as a state we are not just monitoring closely, but we are in active communications. We know that as the investigation goes on, that we will be able to move in accordance with what the investigation uncovers.
Well, anybody else? There we go. Thank you.
Do you have any information on how the port being partially shut down is affecting the supply chain, either here locally or nationwide?
So we have a group called the Marine Transportation System Recovery Unit that works closely with all of the facilities and the shippers that are bringing cargo in and out of the Port of Baltimore. And so there is some cargo that's been currently rerouted to some other ports. And once we get the deep draft channel fully reopened again, we will have the opportunity to bring all ships back in and get them back into the port. So we are continuing to monitor the stuff that we need within the port and look for ways to get it to the facilities that need it where possible. In some cases, we've been able to move some barges in with slightly lighter loads than they would normally like to do. With this new 20-foot channel, they'll be able to load a little bit deeper, which lets them move more cargo in and out, which helps them as well. And so we are continuing to evaluate all of those measures as well as other impacts that we receive if we get a query about a particular type of cargo that is needed that would have come here. We route that through our other Marine Transportation System recovery units that the Coast Guard maintains across the rest of the nation.
Is there any update on the rebuilding or the redesign of the new bridge as far as, are bids going out? Is the actual design process starting?
No, we're still moving forward with the intention to have the progressive design build for the bridge. We don't yet have any details on what the design is going to be, what the frame is going to be. The thing that we know is that we want to move aggressively, and that's part of the reason that we've been working with our federal delegation and also members of Congress to ensure that we can not only get to that point of the 100% cost share, because that's actually going to focus on speed and efficiency for our ability to be able to get the bridge rebuilt.
Now, do you have the power to create an executive order to mandate that tugboats follow the boats all the way past the bridge for these boats coming in or out now and even after the bridge is rebuilt?
So the challenge is when you're talking about maritime operations, there's a multiple jurisdiction conversation that then has to take place. We are going to ensure there's safety that's being used as we're increasing the measure of commercial traffic that's going up and down the Patapsco, and as we're continuing to utilize the Port of Baltimore. But we also know that maritime operations oftentimes is a multi-jurisdictional facet, so that's why we're continuing to move in partnership on it.
Tara Lynch, WJZ. Governor, who owns the bridge? I know the MTA manages it. Who owns it? Maryland?
I'm sorry, you mean the future configuration?
Who owned the Key Bridge? The state of Maryland? City of Baltimore? Who owned it?
Yeah.
Good afternoon. James Harkness with the Maryland Transportation Authority. So the state of Maryland owns the bridge. The Maryland Transportation Authority is the owner of the bridge.
Assuming that would be retained in the new bridge?
Yes, that's correct.
And then, Mayor, is the city spending money to repair the bridge, involved in this, cleaning up, et cetera?
So I think you just heard that the bridge is owned by the state, but what you've heard from us consistently is that every level of government will do whatever we are called to do. We are working alongside our leader and the governor, who's been leading us fabulously through this tragedy, and we stand ready to support in any way that we have to as the city of Baltimore.
I guess my question more is the lawsuit that the city filed is regarding
Yeah,
spending
I know
money.
what you're trying to do, but you're not going to get me to talk about the lawsuit. That'll happen in due time.
Thank you.
Let's talk about politics briefly. I noted your op-ed. Looks like really letting you use the mic despite the projection. I noted your op-ed talking about the realities of national politics and how this is going to play in the future. What are some of your thoughts about the way the national politics are going to work out on supporting our region and the country and getting the port and the bridge open?
Well, I'd say one of the things we wanted to highlight in the op-ed is that this isn't about politics. The op-ed was written, a joint penned op-ed between myself and Representative Andy Harris, who represents the 1st District of Maryland and is a Republican. I think it highlights that Maryland and our entire delegation, that we're standing arm in arm on this, both Democrats and Republicans, with a clear understanding that this is not just a Baltimore tragedy or a Maryland tragedy. This is a national tragedy, and it's important that Congress also play an important role on it. And I'm grateful to Congressman Harris because I know that there might be a collection of things that Congressman Harris and I might not agree on, but his willingness to reach across the aisle, his willingness to be able to work together and putting together, I think, a really strong and important statement to say that it is important in this moment that we actually put politics to the side, that we understand that this is not going to be a partisan solution to what's happening here. This really has to be a collective response and a patriotic response about the way that we are going to rebuild something that is incredibly important and valuable to the Port of Baltimore and to our country as a whole. So I'm grateful that that in Maryland we're setting a standard about how we can get things done, because in Maryland we actually choose to get things done by working together on issues.